following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. I am back, and you are comfortably zoned with me, the Zigzag Man, in Alameda, California, right across the bay from San Francisco, across the moat from Oakland, and down by the lagoon, as Archie Bunker would have pronounced it. Alameda is a great place to be on a summer day, COVID-19 notwithstanding. And as usual, I have some of the most interesting people on the planet to talk to on a regular basis. Today is no exception. My old buddy and the man who is going to write the foreword on my new book. The new book is entitled Mary Jane is My Girlfriend and Baseball is My Mistress. So I'd like to introduce Mark Littell to these airwaves for perhaps the 30th time. Nice to talk to you, Mark.
Ralph, glad to be here. And we have the Heart River over here as our lagoon in Dickinson, North Dakota. Of course, not many people may know this, but General Custer led his troops by the Heart River and all the way down into Montana to get his ass kicked, and that's exactly what happened. So I'm by the lagoon right now, where he camped out.
Now, let me ask you this: do you have people finding artifacts on the property from time to time? Do things come up from those times, or have they all been accumulated? Or is there ever a find? I guess that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, there is, because they know the places where they did camp, and they came out of Fort Lincoln, out of basically Bismarck area, Mandan, and then they went obviously to the west and picked up the Heart River, camped here in the Dickinson area, went down to Bellevue, and his wife at that point with a couple other gals, they were escorted back. I would have liked to have been those guys escorting the ones back, because on the other side was what he had to meet in Little Bighorn. But they do find a lot of trinkets once in a while. There's people out there with metal detectors. I don't say a lot, but every once in a while they bump into something, and they make note of it. Of course, this is all Teddy Roosevelt country here. This is where he came when his wife and mother died on the same day in New York, and he decided to freeze his butt off up here for a few years.
Wow,
trying to be a
cattle
rancher.
That had to be an experience, losing both wife and mother at the same time. Wow.
Right.
An emotional kick in the face. Or party time, depending on your family situation. You never know. People respond in different ways to different situations, but they always respond the same way under pressure. Under the same pressure, a player, a human, a pitcher, whatever, will respond in the same way. When you were coaching, did you ever look for those pressure situations when you knew it was at the brink of, I'm talking about coaching, other players, not yourself, but you knew, you could see in their eyes when they've reached the point, when they've had enough. When you go out to them on the mound, is pressure a big part of it?
Well, you know what? That's a very good question, because as a player, you always prepare yourself for worst case scenario. And, how are you going to handle worst case scenario? So you have to rehearse this over and over in your mind. What a worst case scenario is and how many times you can see this, but overcome it at the same time. The same thing as a coach when you go out there and you take your walk from the dugout to the mound, and your body language, the way you present yourself, how you say it, the tone that you say it in, and then you look, maybe you can salvage the individual and make him, turn it around, because at the minor league level, you're developing. Sure, you'd like to win, but you're there to develop, and maybe you can get a kid over a hump. And you've already rehearsed this with your pitching staff to sit there and visualize, a worst case scenario before it ever happens, and then see what you can do to handle that in the real time zone, between the lines.
Now, dare I ask if these skills didn't come into play when your worst case scenario as a player came up with Chris Chambliss?
Well, you're just sitting there, I'm still calm, cool, and collected out there, I think with me, I think as most people that are closer type guys, they really don't give a shit, tell you the truth, because that's part of the makeup and demeanor of that person. I mean, we really care, I guess, but, you're either going to be the hero or the GOAT, and if you're operating at 9.5 or 9.5 clicks out of 10, of success, that's good, pretty darn good job.
Okay, now we've only talked about Chris a little bit over the years of doing this and over the years of my knowing you. But what I don't know, and that's, I look at that as one of your worst failures, that type of thing, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. What are some of the successes that you take the most pride in? And it doesn't have to be a championship game. What would, on the mound, minor league experience, major league experience, what were some of the things that you talk to yourself, going, I got this, country. We got this. Where you said it to yourself, I've reached a certain level. I've progressed a certain level.
Well, I don't think that's an interesting point, is that you don't really think you ever have it. I operate from a negative to a positive. I always tried to say, well, I can't throw a strike. Jesus Christ, I threw a strike and I got an out. Good grief. So the negative, right. If you get too positive like a football player, I'm going to run through you, boy, I'm going to kill you. That just doesn't work in baseball. Baseball is kinesthetic awareness, fine tune, fine touch, and it's like shooting a basketball, same thing. Whereas football is totally the opposite. I'm going to run through you and kill you. Whereas if you try to do that on a baseball field, you're going to get shattered for the most part. That's why the game it's such a great game. It's a thinking game.
Even though it's a touch sport, so to speak, a finesse sport, so to speak, there is still something mentally about knowing you got the finesse and that you can harness that finesse. So I want to know two instances. One as a minor leaguer and one as a major leaguer. When you came over a certain hump, when you reached it and you knew it at that time.
As the
minor
major
leagues
leaguer.
First. Do minor leagues first.
Minor league was interesting because in 1973, when I went to the big leagues, I was like 9-1. I didn't even go to big league camp. They didn't know who Mark Littell was really when they called me up, because I wasn't even supposed to go to AAA. I was supposed to go to AA. So anyway, just to skip all this, I'm 9-1. I throw my debut, and you get beat up a little bit, and then you get sent back down. Well, anyway, I go to Puerto Rico and pitch. I've got in 320 innings, which is like a joke, and I go into spring training about 3 weeks between Puerto Rico and big league camp. My arm's tired, it's sore. to cut to the chase, I go through an arm surgery in '74. The Royals didn't know. They thought it was mental, and it was really something wrong. And I had to go down to Memphis to get it all checked out, and through Campbell's Clinic, and they did the surgery and everything. I came back throwing better than ever. But beside the point was I was 0-3 at the time in 1975, the next year in AAA. But I had like about a 2.5 or less, about 2.3 ERA at the time, but I was still 0-3. And I remember playing in Indianapolis. It's the Cincinnati Reds AAA, and they had a really good system. At that time they had some pretty good players, and I'd already faced those guys in '73, and that was a part of your big red machine. All those young guys,
right, those guys coming up. Concepcion and Dreesen and Griffey and all those guys.
Griffey, Dreesen, Youngblood, Knight,
Bobby Tolan.
Yeah, but anyway, I'm sitting there, and I'm holding a lead in the 7th inning in Indianapolis. I'm 0-3 at the time, and Billy Gardner's the manager. I got a runner on second and 2 out, and Billy came out to me, and here's an arm surgery guy and stuff. I'm 0-3, and he said, "Hey, country," he said, he asked me this. He said, "You want me to bring in so and so, try to get you out of this?" And it was a go-ahead run at the time, out there. And I looked at Billy and I said, "Hey, Billy, I got this," And, so I stood up right there and said, "I got this." Well, I did. I got a pop-up on the infield for out number 3. That was going to be my last inning because, I had been giving a lot of innings in those other 3 games. So, I took it out to the max, in a sense. We scored a couple runs. I ended up getting the win, on that. But the fact that I said, I got this, and the fact that I could have come out a loser because if the other pitcher comes in, gives up a hit, the run scores, we don't score, I'm 0-4, I still do well, but, so what? But, I took it by the horns. And you know what? I went over to the dugout. Everybody, high-fived me after the game. We went out on the field, Went in to the clubhouse. I stayed out in the dugout. I went out to the bullpen by myself. And I was sitting there thinking about it, and I actually cried. That's by myself because I said, wow, I just got over a hump, a real one, a real hump at this point.
Beautiful. Hey, before I ask you about a major league analogy to that, I want to just tell you that whether you remember it or not, Billy Gardner was a utility infielder on the 1954 New York Giants.
Didn't know that.
My team as a kid. I'm 10 years old, and they win it all. And Billy Gardner gave him some help. I mean, he was a good ball player, and I got to meet where you and I got together, meet doing tops. Billy Gardner Jr. was a coach in the Cal League for a while. Right. I don't know if you know that or if your paths crossed, but and I got to talk to Billy Gardner Jr. about his dad. So I have all kinds of little memories of that. And the one thing I love about baseball is that there's always the connect, the name game. You could throw a name out there, and I could throw a name, and pretty soon we're 20 deep in stories about players that connect with one another, and that's the love of the game for me. That's where, and glad you're part of that, Mark. But I want to stay on track to what I want to get. That was a step in minor league ball. Am I right?
Yeah. Right.
Big difference between minor league ball and major league ball. I think the difference basically is in your head is in one's head at that time, if you're pitching AAA under the right circumstances with a little tinkering here and there and a good mindset, you could be a major league pitcher. Am I correct?
Exactly. A lot of it is, based on maturity, because I think everybody goes up and goes back down. Most do anyway, and
right.
they have to try to figure out to say, hey, what's going to keep me here? Am I going to be a 4A player, a good 3A player, 4A player, or am I going to be, stationed a little while to make some time in the show? And that can come around quickly if you mature enough and know how to, take the bull by the horns, as you might say. And that's the biggest factor. To jump over to your parallel here on the big league side, I know this sounds really kind of stupid, but we were playing San Diego and St. Louis, and it was hot, and it had rained the night before, and we had a day game, so we had a getaway plane after the game. It was a getaway day to Los Angeles to our West Coast trip. And so you go to Los Angeles, up to San Francisco, back down to San Diego. You might play a couple of games in Texas and back up, or generally it's just a West Coast trip and back on in. But anyway, it was hot. It had rained the night before late. We had a little bit of an extra inning game. I went out on the turf early. We didn't have batting practice. One, because it was so hot. Two, because we had extra inning game the night before. The other team was the same way. And I went out there, and I had gotten dressed. I read the paper. I came in around 10:30 for a 1 o'clock game. It was actually early at that time because everybody was going to rush in there at around 11, I'm sure, and try to get with it. I walked out on the field, had my shower shoes on, and my shirt and pants, uni on, and the ground crew was out there, and I walk up on it, and I said, well, what's the temperature on this turf right now? Because I know I could see the steam coming off of it where it rains, And they said,
right.
well, country boy, right now it's 108, on the turf. Yeah, at 10:30, 10:40, say. And I said, oh, really? So, I grew up in Missouri, and I knew how hot it could get. But you got to remember, I played on turf in Kansas City and turf in St. Louis. Now they both have grass on both of those, so now they're on grass. But the interesting thing was, you're in this game, and you're seeing these players suffer, and they have all these ice buckets that are, plastic ones filled up, and they got ice in them, and they come running off the field, and first thing they do is they put both those feet in those ice buckets because they've got little bitty, after it's all said and done, they got blisters on their feet where those cleats are. So you got 6 on each foot, and you've got 6 blisters where those cleats, it was
because
absorbing.
Of the heat of the cleats. Now, are there rubber cleats? Have they adjusted that now?
Well, the rubber on the turf got hotter actually. Because it almost it would melt almost. It was so hot.
Tycho, it won't be as an engineer. Let's put it that way.
I guess, but anyway, but beside the point, I'm sitting there during the course of the game, and I didn't care if I got in, and anyway, but it was a 2-1 game when I got in finally in the 7th, and I knew it was hot because these guys were dragging. They had all the ammonia water and everything going, and at this point when I went out there, it was 136 degrees on the turf. And,
oh my
and
God!
So, yeah, really,
you could literally cook an egg.
Oh, big time. It's unreal. And these guys are sitting there saying, get that shit over with. Get us off the fucking field. Everything. You can get us the hell out of here. I remember I struck out all 6 batters in the last 2 innings. And
oh, wow.
Jerry Morales, who I played with over in Puerto Rico, got a double off of me with 2 outs, and then I struck out the next hitter. But I'd struck out everybody but Jerry. And then I came off the field finally. I don't think anybody came onto the field. It was too damn hot. To shake
to
hands.
Congratulate you or anything else.
Yeah.
Meet you in the clubhouse, meet.
Yeah. I didn't even want to raise my hand even, either. So, we kind of drag off the field. We took the win. And I remember, the clubhouse is really very cool. It's cold almost, and you got your Anheuser-Busch products there, in full line in the really big refrigerators. And I remember stripping down completely naked. I threw a bunch of white towels down on the red carpet. I was spread eagle. I had a bud in my right hand over there. I tried to tip my head up and just pour it down. Nobody bothered me, So, but anyway, I went in and weighed myself. I lost 9 pounds.
Wow.
Good grief. Yeah, really.
9 innings or 2 innings.
Two innings stint. And, shit. So,
wow. Now, what's it like the next day? What's recovery like?
Well, that's funny too, because I remember Butch Yakima, who was our clubhouse guy, and Butch was a little Jewish guy that come in there, maybe 5 foot tall, and he'd been with the Cardinals forever. And Butch had 9 World Series rings at the time, soon to get his 10th. And interesting guy. And Butch sent Buddy Bates over and said, I was sitting there still on the floor, and everybody was kind of mumbling around, taking their showers, and they were saying, "Country, you better get going." He said, "We got this plane to catch, I said, "Yeah, I know. Leave me the fuck alone, So anyway, you mope into the shower, you get under it. It kind of revives you a little bit. Puts cold water on. You're still hot. You kind of pull up your clothes and put them around you, and you kind of mope out of there, and you don't want to talk to anybody, and then you're on the team bus out to the airport, and you kind of mope through the airport and then onto the plane, and you conk out. You don't even want to play cards out there this time, because usually that's what happens. And then you go out to LA.
Who is the best card player you ever played with or against in any game in baseball?
Well, Bochy was pretty good. Lou Piniella was pretty good. Ted Simmons was pretty good. Of course, I just named a lot of Hall of Famer type guys right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Boch got out of it just in time. This would not have been a pleasant season for Boch. They're winning a little bit. That's notwithstanding. Baseball is, you got guys playing. Your Cardinals, how many cases have come out?
We got like 16, 17.
Yeah, this is crazy. Why do they not put a fork in it? Yeah, I know why. It's the money, TV money, and this. But is it worth it? If I were an owner and I owned, as owners do, the piece of property of a ball player, would I want to risk this terrible disease that may not kill you, but it's going to change you on the inside? I guarantee you.
Apparently it does, change you. Yeah, you're right. It does. It does change you. But you go out there and finish up the question. Anything on your deal? Yeah, you'd go out there to L.A. and you'd walk on the field. You'd kind of wobble, and then you start to get a little frisky about middle of the game, and hopefully they give you another day. And then I pitched on the third game out in L.A. So
whatever. After that. Okay, Generally, were you the kind of guy that, and I'm sure you were, a closer, you can go back to back every now and again?
Oh, I went three, in a row several times, and I think I went 4 one time, but that was when Whitey was over in Kansas City. Of course, I'm really young. I'm younger, but they didn't really know how to use, closers. They didn't know how to use them. They thought they could just, go forever. And, it's interesting because I'm one of the few, I guess. I learned these statistics now since I'm writing a little bit, but I had 60-plus appearances, say, 3 times, yet I had also 100-plus innings at the same time. There's only about 40 of us that did that. So,
wow.
So it says I'm fucking stupid. So,
well, you got a lot of time on your hands to look back on stats like that, but you got to be proud. You got to be proud.
Yeah, wasn't afraid to take the ball.
Okay. Let me change the subject a little bit. I'm writing a book, and I need a little expertise. We may have talked about this before. What's a day in the life of an author like? You've got a book you've written 2, and you're working on the 3rd. What's the day in the life like for you? Is it structured, or is it when you think about it, or when you... how does it work?
I don't know that it's structured. I think it's a thing that you have to get out and said, and you try to put it on paper, right? And you're sitting there looking at it, and I think you're playing around with the words a lot. And then when you go through at least your first 2 times, you think, how can I write this crap? And then you rewrite the 3rd, and that's a little bit better. And then, the 4th comes around, and you're having somebody proof it with you, and, this, and, and then it's all my words. It's just that, when you dot I's, cross T's, and colons and everything else, and quotations. Exactly. You want somebody to get that right other than you. And so,
right. Well, I think that if you remember that the quotations always go on the outside of the sentence, no matter what. And I think if that's all you know, you look smart. All right?
Yeah. I mean, I go to C.S. Lewis and try to read his stuff, and I'm going, holy crap! Forget it.
Exactly.
I'm not the English type,
No, you are very good with words. Do not underestimate yourself. Do not shortchange yourself.
We're trying to put the words for a story. So it's just like you and I talking, Ralph. I think when you tell a story and you're, in baseball books, sometimes I think there's baseball books that have pictures and all the other stuff. That's all cool. And there's too many that have too many statistics, but they forget to tell the story of they don't go deep enough sometimes or detailed enough. And, that's the hard part, I know when you were out to see me see, you had a real, I know you're going to write some good stuff, but you have some really interesting things because you were around the game, see. And that was cool because you're seeing some players that are, going to their beat. It's just not, hearsay. You actually saw that. And I know it because I was there.
I saw that, and I got a lot of experience in being around coaches and managers at that level and scouts. I spent an entire day with Sid Thrift, and my experience with that is going to be in the book. My experiences with the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, Peter Golenbach, I don't know where to start and where to finish. There's about 15 of us who come together as a team, and my story is told through them. about the later part of my life. So it's going to be interesting, notwithstanding that I mix in some baseball with some cannabis. An old friend from my days of living in Sacramento, a fellow by the name of Ferris Fain. I don't know if you remember that name. He was a pretty good ball player in his day. And after his career was over, my friend Ferris, who turned out to be a cannabis grower up north in California, and he turned out to get busted for it. And I had been knowing him for 4 or 5 years before. He would come down and speak to organizations in Sacramento. He was such a cool guy with the kids. Sacramento is a big baseball mecca, and there's all kinds of American Legion and this, that, and the other thing, all kinds of banquets coming down. And Ferris and I would meet up, and before and after the banquet, we'd smoke a J outside and laugh at the world a little bit. And he gets busted, and it all changes. For me, it was so unjust at the time. The laws were so crazy, and I knew where his head was at, and I knew where his heart was at, and it inspired me to be a 420 activist. And it really changed my life. And then I had to bluff my way through 15 years of Tops because they thought I was an insurance man, and I was a hippie. And,
that's good.
And nobody knew it. I did not mix. I didn't mix my. I did not share my herb with anyone in those days. So
I'm sure you didn't. It was so different back then too, because of, people actually went to jail for doing stupid little shit.
Ferris served time.
Yeah,
and I'll tell you another quick story. I said Sacramento was a hotbed in baseball. They produced a kid named Sammy Lovelace. Sammy Lovelace played in the minors he was a double play combination with Manny Trio. So this is back with the A's in the 80s.
Right.
Okay. One day, it's in the paper in Sacramento and few other places. He was a minor leaguer. He was caught smuggling a pound of J in I guess he was playing in the Winter League in Mexico. They caught him smuggling a pound of J back in the country. And this fine young infielder with he's just one of those guys that glows when you meet him, that kind of thing. A father of young twins and a husband. His career is absolutely ruined.
Sure.
And I talk about a little bit in the book, or will when I get it completely down on paper. We'll talk about the changes that he had to go through in life and how he died tragically at a young age because the demons got him. But,
really?
Yeah. And he was a blue chipper. He was a prospect in every way, in every form. And he would have been a credit to baseball at no matter what level he rose. He had one of those faces where he liked to lit up the room. So rest in peace, Sammy Lovelace. The book and marijuana isn't all, and the adjustment of what society has had to go through around marijuana, which at one time was a great healer in this country, a great medicine used for all kinds of stuff. It went through prohibition, and it turns out that after doing many tests on marijuana over the years, it becomes legal and becomes a medicinal form yet again. And it became on prohibition. Why was that? Because it was used by musicians and a lot of black
presidents
as well, of course.
Back in the day.
Back in the day, and that could have been last Thursday. So it wasn't. We would have noticed a considerable change in demeanor were it only true in this president. We're not going to get into politics on this show. I promise you that, Mark. I'm going to close it out before. You are a tremendous guest, and you are a tremendous friend. I love you. You know that.
I know that. Yeah.
Okay.
Same here, Ralph. You know, it's real fast. I was going to say, I was thinking about Jefferson with his tobacco farms out there in Virginia. He was going to call it hemp in the rose.
Well,
think about that. There you go. Hemp in the rose.
Yes.
Hemp between the rows.
But I'm thinking about who in those tobacco farms was working the farm. He had a tobacco farm, but he was a gentleman farmer. Right. And if you start to think of who the people are that were picking the actual tobacco, whatever the hell they do out there, chances are they were a little on the dark complected side.
Oh yeah, they were cutting it and hanging it in the barns, and they cut the tobacco and hung it, and it was labor intensive, just like cotton.
Yes, and our founding fathers, with today's situation, would be rolling over in their graves, but unfortunately, in most cases, it would be for the wrong reasons. So I'll let everybody out there think about it. I know you got it down, Mark. You are tremendous. You transcend Southern charm to you're like Mark Twain to me. That's Thanks. I don't think of you in terms of just being a Southerner. How about that?
That's a good one. I appreciate that too.
All right.
I do. Much.
And I do know that in the forward of the book, you will relate the story that you related to me about I remind you in my producing of the network about Whitey Herzog, that I have some of his traits. And that was a compliment that sticks in my head and will be there for the rest of my life. I want you to know that. So we talk about head cases. I am one. I am number one head case in the United States of America. But we could channel that. We could channel that into good things. There's going to be a lot said about Mark Littell by me in the book. It won't just be your forward written. Mark Littell and the years in the Cal League with Topps Baseball. Going to be fun to write about, and it's always fun to talk to you.
Ralph, I enjoyed it. Thanks so much.
All right. That's just you saying that makes my day, my friend.
You bet.
All right. Adios to Mark Littell. Adios to everybody out there. Hang in there. These are tough times, but they can't get much worse because we have an election in November. Oh, threw some politics in there. God bless you, Mark. Be well. See you later.
You bet.
Happy trails, everyone.
It went well.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.